Hey guys, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to kind of go over a few differences between a PNG and a JPEG file and why image format matters. So, if we start with what we consider a JPEG file, most of us see that regularly and we don't realize that it is a JPEG file. And a JPEG file it's going to be the type of file that's so easy to share. It's going to be in your devices, in your phone. It's going to be in your emails. A lot of the web pages that we're viewing will have JPEGs on there. The reality is that a JPEG file has um, a variety of advantages, and one of those advantages is that when you save a JPEG file, it compresses the size of the file. So let's say you're viewing a file online and you want to create a web page. Well, a JPEG file is excellent for that because it will allow your pages to load faster. So that's the reason why most people come across JPEGs when they're searching for images online. So if you go to Google and you start to find something, um, the first stuff that's going to come up is going to be a JPEG. So even though JPEGs have that popularity, they're not really good files for printing. And most of you guys out there, what you need files for is, in fact, for printing, not for uploading for websites or to share. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want to save a file in a JPEG extension when you're sharing that particular file with your customer. Now, that's typically a file that's only going to be viewed. It has no other use. When we look at a JPEG file and we magnify it, we come across a lot of imperfections. Whenever you compress a file, you lose the resolution that obviously we need the quality for printing. So that's why they're not the ideal file for when you're putting together something for, let's say, you're doing a direct to film file that you need to have printed, or if you're doing screen printing and you need to separate that file into different layers. There are a lot of different applications that we need those files for: sublimation, screen printing, DTF, DTG. So many different things that we're doing today that requires a file that has good quality and then allows us to be able to output at the highest possible resolution, right? So that's really right there the weakest issue with a JPEG file as opposed to, let's say, a file like a PNG. So a file like a PNG respects the background. If it is a transparent, or if it isn't a transparent, you could have a PNG file with a transparent with a background or a transparent background. But the fact that it has a transparent background, it allows us to be able to do many things to that file. It allows us to put together other files together, other images within that image, to be able to move them front to back and obviously maintain a high quality. The the PNG file, it's going to be perfect for printing, and that's kind of what you guys need to make use of. So let's say that in fact we are searching online for that particular file, and we're going to go ahead and search up some some files here that we could play around with. And so I'm going to go ahead, and what I try to do, and this is just something that you guys can make use of as well, is I go to Google like most guys do, and then what I do is I go to tools, and then I try to select a larger size. So a larger size, once I tell Google that I'm looking for, let's say, Super Mario, and what I'm looking for is something in a JPEG, or I could even say in a PNG straight out of the gate, so that everything that it gives me possibly could have already a transparent background. And then I'm going to move into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you guys the main difference for that. So for example, this file right here, not only the particulars of this is to look for something large, but also in higher resolution and without a background. So as you can see right here, this area right here simulates what we considered a transparent background. So I recommend you guys not to copy and paste, but to in fact save that file into your hard drive. Because once you do that, that file is being downloaded and uploaded in its original format. You're not just copying and pasting, okay? So that goes back to the issue of sometimes compressing a file and then losing its resolution. So once I save that, once I save that file into my hard drive, then what I'm gonna do is utilize whatever program I'm working with. I mean, it could be Canva, it could be Photoshop, Illustrator. Perhaps you're working in any of those other programs out there like Cricut or perhaps Silhouette Studio, and these other programs basically they do handle PNGs, and that's what you want to look for. You want to look for a file that you can use across all these different softwares and all these different programs. In the case of this PNG, well, I'm going to go ahead and go look for that PNG. And what I want you guys to see is that really the main difference when it comes to quality. So here's that PNG file that we were kind of looking at before that we just saved. Number one, the first thing I want you guys to understand about a transparent background is that here in Photoshop, we're able to actually see that file, how it floats in the background, right? So we can actually see that it's in fact just a file with nothing behind it. Now, if I go ahead and open the JPEG, well, the JPEG is actually right here. We can already see signs of low resolution, right? As opposed to the PNG. So that's the number one change right there, right? Now, if I try to go look for the resolution on this file, I'm going to go to image size. So right here, I'm looking at what the size of the file is. So the file is actually 30 inches wide, right? From here all the way across to the other side. Not the size of Mario, it's the size of the file, meaning this is part of the file, right? So sometimes we confuse what an actual file is, or what the image is, and the background. So this is just the background, right? We can crop that background, and I'll show you guys how to do that in a minute. But it's important to distinguish between what an image is and what a background is, all right? So right now, the file is reading it at 30 inches wide and 72 DPI. Now, that's pretty low for a file, okay? Pretty low because we want to work in resolution areas like 300 and above, especially when we want to send things to print, right? So the higher the resolution, the better it is. Now, that's going to make your file bigger, obviously. And I know there are issues when you're trying to pass that file along to whoever is going to do your printing or whoever is going to actually, get that file from you. There are restrictions on how you can email it or how you can pass it around, but there are solutions for that as well, and I'll cover that a little further down on the video so you guys understand that really you can focus on getting the highest resolution of your image put together, and then we can worry about how to get that file, even though it's a larger file, to where it needs to go. So right here, Photoshop allows me to change the resolution. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to change the width because I don't need the file to be 30 inches big, number one. I can make the file 10. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the resolution to like 300, right? So notice immediately when I do that, what happens up here. I don't know if you guys are looking at this part right here. So look at the image size right here. It's 32 megs right now. It was, see how it says here, originally 18, right? So it's already growing in size, right? Not in size literally, but in the weight of the file. So we're gonna go ahead and go 300 DPI. We're gonna downsize it from what it had to down to 10, and I want this proportional chain link to be on so that it changes. If I change the width, it's going to change the height. So it keeps it proportional and we don't distort the figure. So I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So now we have Super Mario in the size that he needs to be. I could take this file and I could, stretch it. I could I could make it bigger, taller, wider, right? And it won't lose its resolution because it's already a PNG, and I have it at the highest resolution possible. So if I need to downsize that file, it's going to be no problem for me. So here's the part that I wanted to discuss with you guys on the difference between what a canvas is versus what an image is, right? So an image right here, Mario, is actually 7.57 inches wide by 12.67 high. So that is, in fact, the file, right? The image, I should say. The rest of the file is composed of this background right here, which there's nothing back there, right? But of course, if we upload this or we try to send this to someone, this is going to lead you to think that the file is actually bigger. So if we go to image and canvas size, right, we can tell right here that the canvas, in fact, is 10 inches. So it's 10 inches from here to here, but Mario is only 7. So that's where we need to kind of crop the edges in, and we could do that with the cropping tool. We can come here, we could bring it in close as possible, and I'm going to click OK here. All right, so now really the canvas size is closer to the original size of the image itself, and that's kind of what we want, right? As you know, there's many reasons for us using a PNG. We could be ganging it up for a DTF job, or we want to be able to separate the colors and actually create a screen print file where we have to separate each color independently. That being said, as soon as I switch over here back to the JPEG, well, so our JPEG number one, we could tell that it's got a background. It's a locked file. It means we can't really move Mario out of the way without grabbing the background too. So if I take off the lock and I go to my moving tool and I do this, I no longer have Mario by itself. I have him and the background. So what's going to happen is two things. We need this file because it's the file that we need, and we can't get him in this situation that he's in different than this one. So we start figuring out ways to do things like, okay, so let's try to eliminate the background, right? So eliminating the background, it's going to help us, but it's rather difficult. Sometimes we can't remove the background. Sometimes we cannot vectorize the file either. And I'll explain to you what vectorizing is in a minute. So if I try to get the background eraser out and I try to clean it, I am cleaning it, but I'm also taking away some detail, all right? So that's not going to work. So let's say that I undo here and I go, okay, so we're going to go 1 for tolerance, see if we can erase that. So we're able to leave the file intact. So we haven't really altered Mario in any way, but hey, we're getting these weird edges right here around this area that we're going to have to clean up somehow. Sometimes you got to work smarter. You don't want to work harder. So say you're looking for a particular selection of this figure and this character, and Google can only offer you so much in the condition and in the size that you want, and obviously the particular type of file that you're looking for. So my recommendation is go beyond Google, right? Go to Etsy, go to Shutterstock, go to a lot of these other media providers that you can purchase your file. That's going to be high resolution. It's going to be the condition that you need it. So if you want it in a PNG or if you want it in a PDF or any other size, you could go ahead and get that. You don't have to, dilly-dally with all these other things that you have to do to try to clean them up. The next thing that you're going to try to do is you're going to try to vectorize it because, of course, when they tell you that an image is blurry, the first thing we talk about doing is vectorizing it. Well, not all files can be vectorized, So if I go to my, I use this particular, vector, a vector program. So if I go to that file, try to find it, here he is. Let me go ahead and load him. Okay, so when I try to in fact vectorize this JPEG right here, the file, I can see some shadows right here, some gradiences. That's not going to vectorize well because you can vectorize a clip art. You can vectorize text and fonts and shapes and those kind of things. Sharp edges, um, not images that are considered almost a 3D. This is almost like a three-dimensional character. It's not. It's not a flat one-dimensional character, right? So we're trying to sharpen these edges, but they're not really edges. So what we get, in fact, is this. So vectorizing is not an option for this file. So the only option that we have is to look for something that's a PNG, and Google can only give you so much. So you got to go beyond that, and you got to find that file. Um, and that file the search for that file may take you in places where you have to purchase the file. And purchasing these files sometimes are not that expensive. Sometimes they're $1, sometimes they're $5, sometimes it's less than that. So what you're looking for is you're looking for the highest resolution in the format that you need it in. And that's very important because then you don't have to worry about cleaning it up. You don't have to worry about erasing the background. And like in this case, it's not going to go well to vectorize this file, obviously, in this particular situation. So going back to what we had before with the PNG, and we didn't have to touch this. All we had to do was resize it, and we did that by bringing in the canvas size. We can now adjust the image size right from here, and if we need to make it bigger, if we need to make it back to 10 inches, we can do that. And we don't have to worry about the image losing resolution because in fact, a PNG holds its resolution when you resize it and when you save it. Now, let's talk about saving, and this is the next part about our video today, which are all these different types of extensions, right? So we have all different file extensions that we have out there, right? So the ones that we're focusing on today is JPEG versus PNG because those are the most common files that we're going to be working with. However, there are an entire universe of different files formats out there, and you could be working in a program like Corel and have a Corel file. You could be working in Photoshop like we're working right now. And if we save this file, we have our option to save it as a Photoshop file or as a PNG file. But we can also go beyond that. We can save it as an SVG. We can save it as a PDF, right? We can save it as a TIFF. So there is so many other application types of files. And, I don't want you guys to waste time going after those other particular formats because those formats are not going to help in the process of what you guys want this for. You either want it for sublimation or perhaps you want it for, DTF, like I said, or for separation on screen printing, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, these are the two most common files. So I would personally try to stay away from JPEGs unless you're saving the file as an example for your customer. Anything beyond that, it must be a PNG so that you're able to then not only that, but we can add things to this design. And as soon as we add another layer into here, it could be the name, it could be something we're doing for a birthday party, etc. So all of those layers are going to pop up right here in this section. And then that's how Photoshop allows us to be able to work with multiple layers. When it's time to save it, we can't save that file as a PNG having multiple layers. So at that moment, what's going to end up happening is that we need to merge these layers together, creating one layer, just the way we have it right here, and then it will allow us to go save as, and then we have our choices here, right? So we can do a PDF, we can do a TIFF, like I said before, we could do obviously a PNG, which is what we want, or we could do a Photoshop version file. And this Photoshop file is going to help us open it in a Photoshop. But if your customer wants to see that file and you send them a Photoshop file and they don't have Photoshop, then they won't be able to open that file. So what does that mean? It means that when we save files in Photoshop format, only they can be opened in a Photoshop program. If we do that in Corel, they can only be opened in Corel, etc., Illustrator, etc. So these PDF, TIFF, SVGs, PNGs, right? These are all file formats that allow us to open in many different programs. So if I send you a PNG file and you work with Corel, you can open it in Corel. Same thing with a PDF file. A person working in Corel can save it as a PDF, or they can save it as a PNG, and they can send it out. So again, just to recap, important for file extensions is that they are versatile. They could be viewed by multiple people in different formats, in different programs, in different softwares. And again, your choice may be PDF. Okay, it's an excellent extension file, very similar to PNG. It respects backgrounds, it doesn't compress, it gives you fine resolution. So if you're able to work in a program such as Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop or Corel, and you're able to save your file in PDF, absolutely perfect, because that file format is good. Now, we all have different needs for files. So when a person that prints your DTF says, I need your file in a PNG, don't send it in as a SVG. Don't send it in as a PDF. Why? Because those file formats are not conducive for printing. It could be because of the type of program that runs the DTF machine. So you have to make sure that you forward it in the proper size. And also, you also want to make sure that it's on the proper resolution. So if it's 300 dpi, then it better be 300 dpi. Otherwise, you're not going to have this kind of integrity. You're going to end up with this other situation here, and we all know where that is. And if we go to file size, we see right here that the resolution is 72. So again, to recap, resolution is very important. Obviously, size of the file is important as well. And the format, very important. So let's make sure that if we need something in PNG, we actually source for a PNG file. And when it's time to save it, you can also save it as a PNG file and you can forward it. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope this was informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you like the content that you see, like the content and send us some information if you have any questions. Thank you.